more templates, more things you can do with it. Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
she totally loved it.
Yeah, it was so easy to use.
Nice.
So
Come on in.
Excellent. Excellent. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah. That's it. I'm sure that's enough.
Okay.
Cool. Can I grab a water?
Yeah, that's what they're here for.
I hoped. I hope that was the case.
That's what they're here for.
Was it like some Abu Ghraib, you know?
Yeah.
we're gonna make you stare at that water.
Well,
yeah, there's a bathroom over there,
well,
but
I
no,
also-
you don't get to use it.
I also teach podcasting, and without fail, everybody that does their first one, 5 minutes in, they're going, you can hear the pasty mouth and everything. You need some water, so
Yeah.
I got tired of having to. Oh, let's take a break. And here you go, drink this, and let's continue.
So, did you see my other message about doing a live right now?
Yeah, I did. I'm all for it.
Do you want to do a different message? What do you want to?
Why don't
Last time I did this, I had somebody in. We did the top four good features of a podcast.
yeah.
So I think anything other than that today would be just fine.
Yeah, I think
We could talk about repurposing of
I
content.
think that's really
because that's where
the
you want to
thing.
go.
Yeah, that's where I'm trying to get. So I started a new Facebook group, and as God is my witness, this one's gonna go.
Yeah. What
It's
is
so easy to get complacent with those damn things.
it? Uh-huh.
But anyway, so I started to do one, and it's really taking off nice. I got 120 people in 24 hours.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think that it was the right choice to leave the old one, and I tried to kickstart the old one like 3 times, but it's just too full of dead wood. So anyway,
Is it the Manny Wolfe group or
yeah, that's it. The
okay.
Manny Wolfe group. The focus is on organic marketing, personal branding, and money mindset. But I reserve the right to talk about whatever the heck I want, of course.
Right.
But right now, what I'm focused on is teaching these guys how to get more out of less content. That way, when it comes time to make a pitch, they're just totally primed for
Right.
how we get more out of less content.
Cool.
Mhm.
Very good. Very good.
So I'm putting this thing up right now. Going live in 3 minutes with Manny Wolfe. Today's topic is how to repurpose content for maximum brand growth.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And do you want to go live at the same time on your phone?
Yeah. All right.
Oh, you know what? I put these on for effect, but we can. I can hold my phone. We can put yours up in the stand, or we can go vice versa.
Well, let's put it in the stand because here's something I learned. If you want to use your live stream again, like download it and use it,
Yeah.
you have to flip the phone, at least with iPhones, so you get the good camera, which is really frustrating
Huh.
because this camera
Yeah.
will download grainy.
Really?
It'll download pixely.
Okay.
As long as you don't make them too big, you're okay.
Yeah.
The image is too
Ours
big,
has
but
been- ours has been clear. Yeah.
yeah. Well, you're recording off an HD
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah, I
on the
got
computer
So
as
that's
well.
why.
Yeah.
And for the iPhone, this is the HD camera. This is
Gotcha.
just the regular, the 750.
Oh, I see what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
whatever it is, yeah. Also, I think that problem has been eliminated with the iPhone 11, but I don't have the iPhone 11 yet.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to check one more place for that mount that I was telling you about.
So I did this last time as an experiment when I had Sean Wickard here. Sean's got an incredible story of being paralyzed like 22 times, first person in the U.S. to go to the National Institute of Health and get a stem cell transplant and be able to walk again. Back in the day, I helped him put his book out, and I got my editor to edit stuff and helped him with some stuff. So he actually goes live next week. He's
How
next
do
week's
you want
one.
to do paralyzed 22 times?
Had transverse myelitis and lupus.
Oh,
He's like the first person in the world to be actually cured of those things through his own stem cells.
Wow.
Pretty fascinating story.
The 22 accidents. Dear God.
He's a horrible driver.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
and a base jumper.
Yeah, not a good base jumper.
Right.
I like to do it without a parachute.
That's really the worst kind of base jumper. It really is.
Oh my God, I just can't believe I don't know where that thing is. But anyway.
We're talking. Cool.
Oh, he's a tribe member, isn't he? James Stephenson.
Yeah.
So he's at your event right now.
Oh, cool.
He's
Oh,
got a
that's cool.
podcast on here, doesn't
Yeah, not yet. He keeps wanting to, but then
Okay.
he never follows up. So
He wants to want it.
he? Yeah, he wants to want it. So whenever you're ready, I'll go. I'll just hold the phone and go. We'll just
Okay.
kind of crunch in like we did last time. If you want to put yours up in the thing, we'll just be ready to go.
All right, now, how do I?
okay, just put your yep, just put blah blah blah. It's Friday.
Right. All right.
I have another one of those grip things that's smaller, but I can't
What are we gonna talk
locate it.
about?
Repurposing content.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so that. looks
And you
like-
can tilt it down so
Oh,
too.
I
Might
know.
have to loosen that little ball there in the back. But
Manny,
yeah, well,
we were going to meet Bill afterwards.
Okay.
Do you have any kind of dietary restrictions or anything? That, it seems to me you had something that you.
I don't eat like cows and pigs, basically.
Okay.
so chickens and
Chickens and fish, fair game, no
Okay.
pun intended.
So if we went to a barbecue place or something, you eat chicken.
Probably fine.
Are you good with that?
yeah, if you want to do it sideways, let me show you
Okay.
another option here. We could do this and then
Oh yeah, just
that way it won't fall out. Let's see if that'll get us where we want it to. Okay, we can go forward a little bit more. I just don't want your phone to fall
Yeah.
out. Or I've got duct tape. We can put a little bell on the back and it'll hold it in.
where's duct tape? Yeah, I see the two microphone. Okay. So what are we talking about again?
Purposing of content.
Ah, yes.
Your topic you're
My
focused on
topic,
for this
yeah.
weekend while you're in
Yeah.
town.
That's funny.
Let's dive a little deeper into how to repurpose your content, comma, the power of your personal brand, comma, and the simple mistakes that you're probably making, ellipsis. I'm just going to hit it.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Well, happy Friday, Facebook. We're going live on a couple different cameras today, and today I am in the studio with Manny, the man Wolfe, and Bad Brad Neufeld, and we're getting ready to do a podcast. And Manny happens to be in town from Sacramento, or right near Sacramento, right?
Close enough.
And we're going to be talking about his journey and the way he has kind of transitioned through now to become a social media influencer and helping people build their brands. And are we waving at somebody?
I'm tagging myself.
Sweet. I thought I tagged you. That's okay. So as Manny tags himself, I will just sit here patiently. We're also live on Manny's camera. My arms are longer. This would all work out better.
That's right.
But anyway, and we got Bad Brad Neufeld here in the back with us today. And what we're going to talk about for a few minutes before we do the podcast is repurposing content. And this is something that anybody trying to build a brand, build their business should get really good at. Wouldn't you say,
Yeah.
Manny?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about, like today, Manny came in, we did some filming, we did a little B-roll for a video. We're doing this podcast, we're doing this live right now. And yeah, he's got the extra camera going.
Mhm.
And also his camera behind the scenes is going, so he's going live on his channel. So Manny, maybe give a couple of your top tips that you give your
Yeah.
clients for repurposing content.
Absolutely. I have an acronym I like to teach. I learned it in music conservatory, which is a skill set I paid a lot for and don't use.
So you got those too.
Yeah,
All right.
Exactly. I can play the shit out of a bass at home, in my living of my
Not in the
composition,
shower, I hope.
one of my composition teachers was breaking down Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, which you'll know is when it goes dun 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 dun, and he showed
How's
us
that go?
dun 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 dun.
I just want to do it again.
I'll do it as many times as you need. But he showed us how he took the whole symphony. It was just variations on that simple theme.
Mm-hmm.
Like any kid can walk up to the piano and go dun 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 dun, right? You figure it out right away.
Mm-hmm.
What he did was he repurposed over and over again. He flipped it backwards. He played it at different speeds, at different pitches. So the way I was taught was through an acronym called AMAP-FLAP. You're hearing me talk about that a lot. It sounds goofy, but memorize it. AMAP-FLAP, as much as possible from as little as possible.
So everybody say that out loud.
Say it out loud. That's
Yeah,
right.
as
Write
Much
it on
as
your
possible
chalkboard.
for as little as possible.
As much as possible from as little as possible. Now, Brett is shooting this live stream. I've got my camera. It's flipped around so that I'm shooting in HD, my phone,
Mhm.
and then I can download that in a high video quality. I can put the whole interview on YouTube. Boom, that's 2 for 1.
Yep.
I can send it to my assistant and have her edit it in and out with the B-roll, titles, things like that. Now I can go on Instagram. And if you do Instagram right, you can get 3 for 1, right? You can
Right.
just get Instagram stories, and IGTV.
Yep.
It's also going to go on YouTube as short clips.
Mhm.
It's also going to go on my page. It's also going to go on LinkedIn. So do you see what I'm saying? We do one piece of content, but we want to use it a minimum of 4 times, I'd say.
Yeah, at least.
Mhm.
What also people can't really tell is right there in the back by Bad Brad over there.
Yeah,
That computer's on. That's
That's right.
also recording,
the
and
backs of our heads.
Yes.
Yeah.
and that is stimulating material for anybody.
Yeah.
Of course, because not many people have this much great hair. So we're using that as well. And then when we do this podcast, it's not just going out on the King's Radio Network, which is awesome. It's going to go out in at least how many times a week does it go out? Six or 7 times a week. It gets rebroadcasted
Yeah.
just through the station.
Mhm.
But it's also going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on Podbean, iTunes. I mean, how many services are there, Brad?
6 that I know of. Yeah, SoundCloud. And then there's a couple others that I can't pronounce.
So there's at least 6 different podcasting services are going to take the podcast out. So we're constantly trying to maximize the absolute minimum amount of content, the amount of
Right.
flap. Did I say that right?
Pretty much,
Pretty
yeah.
right. It's good enough for me. I'm a power talker. I take words, make them my own. It's just what I do.
Own those bitches.
That's right. So we'll also be taking snippets from the video, from the computer, from the phones. We'll be using those as thumbnails. You can use those as thumbnails on your YouTube stuff. You can use them as thumbnails for your Facebook, Instagram, other
Yep,
places. And we'll be using them as thumbnails on websites. So there's a lot of things that you can do with your content when you start to look outside the box, think outside the
Yeah,
box,
exactly.
and get that content out there.
Exactly.
So we wanted to just share this for a few minutes and say, hey, Jerry, good to see you on there. Sal, my man, good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Sal.
Sal, you still have the #1 podcast here from Operation Limitless. I know you're
Nice.
crushing Mark Peterson, and he's crushed about that. So just going out, putting that out there for all the eyes to see. Anyway, does anybody else have anything they want to share about repurposing before we jump off and do this podcast?
You got to think outside the box, just like you said. Most of us feel like to create a new post is a single effort for a single outcome. And
Right.
if you think that way, you'll never really build momentum with your content.
Yep.
You can take, if you could take this live stream if you wanted. I don't know why you would, but we can. And
Because
we can
we're
send
handsome?
Right.
Yeah,
but you can send it to rev.com.
yeah, that's
And
my
you can
favorite
transcribe
service.
it.
Yep.
Right? You can send it to Lumen 5 and have them make an animated video from it. And I bet you there's a dozen or so
Yeah.
things I don't even know about out there.
Right.
But that's the idea.
And we both use Lumen 5. We're not telling you anything that we don't do. I use Rev all the time. I use Lumen 5. You already heard how we're doing the podcasting and how we're putting out all those spaces. So this is real world stuff that takes a little bit of effort, a little bit of focus, but in general pays huge dividends over the long run.
Yeah.
Brian Hurd, good to see you, buddy. It's been a while. Anyway, with that being said, put your questions down below. I'll answer them. Manny will answer them. We'll do some stuff. But even Bad Brad might chime in if you're really, really lucky, if you've been good.
Yeah.
And we will. We're gonna do this podcast. This is gonna air. Manny's podcast here is gonna air in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from yesterday. So, with that being said, we will see you soon. We're gonna jump off and.
And Sal, you're at 260, by the way.
Oh, Sal. Okay, 260. You keep climbing, Sal. Anyway, all right. Everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.
Peace.
Hope you didn't mind me throwing that in there.
No?
Well, happy Friday, Facebook. We're going live on a couple different cameras today, and today I am
That's funny.
All right. Nice. Yeah, it worked out really good on the
Did it work good?
horizontal inclination.
Nice.
What the hell.
Whatever. Just make it up.
Now, tell me a little bit about this mic. What's the sweet spot?
Okay, go right ahead and put the headphones on there. Sweet spots in right here between 6 and 8 inches, right, just right in there. So
That's what she said.
that's how you, exactly.
gonna say.
That was obvious.
As soon as that came out, I was like, "Whoop."
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Keep throwing
All right,
slow and
edit that out.
I'll keep knocking them out of the park.
edit. Yeah, there we go. So anyway, all right.
By the way, full raw and uncut or edited or how do you?
Oh well, we edit it. The only thing we request is no F-bombs, but but other than that, free game.
Okay.
Unless Brett's got rules for his.
I keep the
Way of
language
doing
toned
things.
down for this because my martial arts students and stuff.
Yeah.
could be watched. That's it. But other than that,
So.
I mean,
I think I can keep it clean and still get my point.
Yeah.
we can bleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my audience, anyway, they hear stuff like that. I can't believe you let that. Anyway,
Always good to ask ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some
so
people are like, dude, let it rip. Come on.
so go ahead and push that a little closer there. The whole thing. There you go. Now,
Check.
see, because we can do the
Oh, you know what we didn't do? I want to get a picture.
yeah, because we can do
picture.
the very deep resonating voice, or we can go whoa. Yeah.
I like the very.
Everybody
Whoa.
lean in so we can get the obligatory picture.
So anyway, yeah, that's about it.
Whenever you point, Brad, we'll roll.
Okay, for some reason I'm getting a half and half. Oh, there we go. Yep. Somebody's been messing with my thing there. Either that or I hit the wrong one. Okay, we're good.
Bastards.
We're good to go. So here we go. Ready?
Yep.
3, 2.
All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Operation Limitless. I'm Brett Lechtenberg. This is a show where we focus on how average people ended up achieving incredible triumphs through confidence, grit, determination, and creativity. The goal is to take the commonalities of these incredible human beings and build a model from which others can replicate and create a limitless life. And today on the King's Information Network, I have the extreme honor to talk with Mr. Manny Wolfe. Manny, it's awesome to have you here. And Manny is the author of The Tao of the Unbreakable Man. And he currently spends much of his time being an incredible coach and mentor for people who want authors, speakers, and coaches who want to build a great personal brand and get their name out there and turn that into a great income. So Manny, we're honored to have you with us today.
I'm super glad to be here. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this.
And also in the background, you can see we have Mr. Bad Brad Neufeld, the extraordinary producer and occasional question asker. So he might chime in and ask you something as well. So we're going to jump right in. Manny, you have a pretty incredible story, about kind of a backstory of where you came from, and life could have been much different for you than what it is right now.
That's pretty PC.
Yeah. And I just kind of like the audience to know you're also the first business guest. I think all of our previous people have overcome some kind of physical adversity or went through some other big challenge. Yours is not so much that. We have a number of business-oriented guests who've overcome big obstacles coming on the show, but you're the first one of those. Okay. So anybody tuning in, you know, Manny's not the special forces guy or the guy that makes fire from 2 rocks. Manny builds brands and creates dreams, makes dreams come true.
Yeah, man. And one of my dreams is to actually be able to build, to make fire from 2 rocks. That would be awesome.
Oh, well, I know the people that can
Yeah,
help you
I
with
know.
that.
So yeah, man. I like that you said that life could have turned out very different for me. I think the funniest, best compliment I get these days is, I can't even imagine you doing that. I can't even imagine I can't see it. Like people now, I've come so far from where I was that people now think I'm full of BS when I tell them about where I came from. And that's about as good as it gets. Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, why don't you tell everybody kind of where you came from and kind of the journey, the evolution, and then we'll get into some of your best tips and tricks and some of the
Sure.
stuff that we do now.
So I was born in what is officially designated by the government as a New Age cult.
Okay.
And New Age cult versus religious cult, the basic differences are one is super militant and the other is a little more lackadaisical, but still fits a checklist of certain things.
Right.
The challenge that comes with being born into an environment where everything is so different from the world outside of it is, especially in the case of the one I was born in, it really is a training in how not to ever be able to function in the world around you.
Right. Yep.
It's more of it's like an immersion. And so that was me. And I had the sort of dubious privilege of being the first child born into that.
Oh, so you are the top 1%
Top-
at what you
top
do,
1%
baby.
at what I
Always
do.
going
That's right.
for it. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. And so a lot of funny things sort of happened with my childhood. One was I was simultaneously put on a pedestal for being the first child born. But unbeknownst to me, virtually everyone in that group had had bad dealings with my father.
Oh.
So on the one hand, they're like, "You're the golden child." I kid you not, by the way, they called me that.
The golden child.
Yeah.
So you knew Eddie Murphy, or
I
you
knew
know
Eddie
him.
Murphy.
Yeah.
By the way,
Nice.
no pressure.
Right.
And on the other hand, especially as I got older, the men in particular, I could feel some undercurrent stuff. And I would only learn many, many years later that my father had, stolen women out from under them or conned them, or, stuff like that. And so one of the things about being in a cult is if you come in as an adult, you, on some level, you agree to sort of regress back to about 15 to 17-year-old emotional state, because you have to give over control to the charismatic figure.
Right.
You can't do that as a fully formed, fully autonomous adult.
Right.
You can't. I mean, you can't.
Right.
It's anecdotal, but it's also proven in psychology. And so you had a bunch of really immature people that were in charge of a lot of kids. That's the takeaway. That's the snapshot.
What could go wrong there?
Right, yeah. And so my basic hardwiring, the basic program, if I was to use the computer analogy that I was given, was don't bother trying to fit in with the world. You know something they don't. It's us against them. Anything remotely about money or capitalism is inherently not just bad. Now, we've all heard those stories, right?
Right.
They took it to a new level. I was literally taught that money was what the devil was using to destroy the earth.
Sounds plausible.
So yeah, that's making a lot of sense. So they really took it to an nth degree. And as a result, it's an oversimplification, but at about 14, I was suddenly required to go work. No explanation, no reconciliation of everything I was taught. And it really, really, that would set me on a trajectory of decades of struggling between what I was taught as a kid and now trying to earn money and contribute and things like that. So it became very, really, really aggressive sort of self-sabotage routine.
Now, at age 14, were you still in the cult at that time?
Yeah,
and they were requiring you to work?
What actually happened was we lived at 60 Webster Street when I was born, which is two corners away from the Haight-Ashbury sign.
Okay.
Right? And I was born in 1967, by the way. So,
Mhm.
winter of the summer of love.
There you go.
Some poetry there. And you know, we lived like down the street from Jefferson Airplane. We
Mhm.
lived by Janis Joplin, one of her homes. It was a different,
You were fully immersed in the counterculture.
a different reality. And in that reality, you know, it was fine. I fit in that reality. Then we moved to, for anybody here who likes to keep track of the most dangerous cities in the United States, this kills me. And I can laugh about it now. It's like, you know, as a survivor, you get to laugh about these
Sure.
things.
Yeah.
We moved to Clay Street and Charter Way in Stockton. I don't know if that means anything to you guys, but let me just tell you, from
Yes.
when I moved there until now, it's in the top 10 list of the most dangerous cities, most murders per capita in the United States. It's never once dipped below top 10.
Wow.
And we moved to the geographic center of the worst neighborhood.
Nice.
We
That
were-
takes some real planning. Yeah.
We were the only white family. And we were a 60-person family that had long hair and homemade clothes and, you know, school buses with like slogans painted on the side, like what was one? Get rid of money, worldwide work stoppage, workers of the world unite, UFO ETI master plan.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean,
you were destined to fit in.
yeah, exactly. I was like, hey guys, what's happening? And from the day that we moved, from the first day we pulled in, I went through a period where I fought every day. Hairy, you know, not schoolyard scraps,
Mm-hmm.
dangerous, desperate fights. If I got one fight in a day, I considered that like a day off.
Wow.
So then my two older, I call them god brothers for simplicity. They were just older kids.
Members,
Yeah. They took to pummeling the crud out of me every day to make me tougher.
Oh, well,
So
thank
now,
you.
whether or not I left the compound, I'm fighting every day. And it became so that having to fight with my god brothers was far more scary
Mm-hmm.
than, and I think that was their goal.
Sure.
However, it still sucked.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that was kind of, that set the die.
Mm-hmm.
And then and so living on that in the south side of Stockton, while all of us kids are going through this stuff, I'll tell you a quick story about going to the bus stop one day.
Sure.
Okay.
When we went to the bus stop, it was a pacifist group, which is utterly insane. And if I was going to drop an F-bomb, this is where I'd do it.
The pacifist group who like to fight.
No. The pacifist group who moved into basically the middle of a war zone.
Right.
That's what it really was. And so the kids we found and hid sticks and chains and like serious business, bats in
Mm-hmm.
the bushes right outside the gate. Because we had to walk to the bus stop in enemy territory every day.
Right.
We'd literally walk huddled, and one of us would walk backwards. You know why?
Protect your tail. Yeah.
Protect your tail. It was my day to walk backwards. And I mean, this scared me every day. It's my day to walk backwards. One of my older god brothers had a huge chain. He, remember on the way over here, I was saying, Brett, there aren't that many dyed in the wool, real tough guys, but there are a few.
Right.
My brother was that guy.
Right.
He was that guy. He's got this big chain, like some weird Paul Bunyan, you know? And we're walking, and this, I couldn't believe it, but these two guys, these two like cholos come up behind us, and they're looking right at me. And for those of you that only hear this, you can't see what I'm doing, but they have the audacity to look me in the eye and go, as they're sneaking
Really?
up on us. So I sound the alarm. My brother whips around, lets the chain go, hits one guy right on his ear, and the guy drops like a sack of potatoes. I mean, he doesn't like wobble. He just goes.
Hits the ground. Yep.
Yeah. We just walk to the bus stop. We just leave him there and walk to the bus stop. So that was the kind of the level that we were living in. Meanwhile, the adults are clueless.
They had no idea.
Well, I
Or they
don't know if
or
they had
they
an
or they
idea
didn't
not.
acknowledge.
It was like there was this whole turn the other cheek philosophy that they preached, but I mean, I don't know what their experience was in those years. I don't. what I know is that all of us kids were terrified.
Sure.
I had to jump into bushes one time because somebody tried to run us over on the sidewalk in his 72 Malibu or a 72 Impala.
Wow.
I mean, he came up on the sidewalk, and so that's kind of what it was like, right? And so finally, at some point, I think it dawned on at least my mom, because one day we're here on the south side, like basically just put a pin in it. It's the center
Mm-hmm.
of the Mexican ghetto in Stockton.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, we're living on the west side. Never really talked about it, never really got clear, but I think it finally dawned on them that we were really unsafe. You know,
Right. And how long were you in that environment?
about 4.5 years.
That's a pretty good chunk of time to live under that kind of stress.
Especially when 4.5 years represents a solid third of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
33% of your time on the planet.
Yeah.
And so when we got to the west side, things loosened up a little bit. That was a strange time because, first of all, it was safer to go outside. It turns out it wasn't safe, but it was safer.
Sure.
For the first time in my life, I had friends. So I was about 12, 13 years old when the first time I ever had friends. I was hitting puberty. I was already sort of indoctrinated into the world of drug use because of how I grew up.
Right.
But now I could get recreational drugs and impress my friends, and you know what I mean? And so all of those things came together and I took off like a rocket. During that time, my mother, you know, we didn't get much money, I guess, from the main group, just enough to get by. And she said, you have to go find a job. You got to contribute to this household. And of course, I didn't have the language to say, what the hell do you need? You taught me not to like money.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
You taught me that money would kill me. And now, so anyway,
Yeah, that's got to be quite the reckoning.
we had that talk many years later.
Good.
Just so you know. So anyway, that was it. That started my foray into trying to reconcile what was downloaded into my pristine little psyche
Mm-hmm.
and the realities of the everyday world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing beginning to, especially going into the teenage years where it's so impactful, right? And so formative.
Yeah.
And can stay with you for so long.
it still stays with me. I mean, I've changed every major dimension of my life significantly, but like you, I still walk into a room and size everyone up.
Sure.
Men and women, it just do.
It becomes habit.
Yeah, it becomes habit, and it's not like I don't get like adrenaline anymore about it.
Yeah.
Right.
But I do that, you know, and I'm like, okay, where are the exits?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of stuff. I'm always thinking tactically.
Yep. So what was kind of the defining moment where you realized if I don't make a change or there is another path, right? What was it for you? And do you remember?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay.
That I can still summon those memories and start to shake.
Right.
I didn't know there was another path, which is interesting
Mm-hmm.
because we might think of that as common knowledge, right? Right. We live in a self-improvement obsessed reality.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't even know who Tony Robbins was.
Sure.
You know? So I had, there's a long version and a short version.
Give us the medium version. It's
Okay.
family
Yeah.
show, you know.
Yeah. So powerful confluence of events. I am talked in by a really crazy friend of mine. And by the way, I mentioned earlier how there are some dyed-in-the-wool, real legitimate tough guys. Most of my friends were like that.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my friends were the hardcore, you know, street fighting,
Mm-hmm.
criminal, that element. That was my people. That's who took me in.
Those your peeps.
That's my peeps.
Mm.
So, and we had the level-headed ones, and then we had the crazy ones. I was out drinking in a different city with one of the crazy ones.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? Yeah. And the shortest of short stories is we're at a park getting thoroughly drunk, and he hears voices in the darkness. Like, you just can't write this stuff. You can't write this. And so, Matt, wherever you are, buddy, this one's for you. Any sensible person would either A, ignore them, or B, leave.
Mm-hmm.
Matt says, "What?" And he grabs a full beer in each hand as if they were going to be weapons and charges into the darkness.
As we all normally would.
And so emboldened by the fact that I'm with Matt, I go with him.
Of course.
And we walk.
Did you grab 2 beers?
I did.
Okay.
Followed his lead, man.
Of
yeah.
course. All right.
And so I walked through the darkness with him, and we came to a light in the park, and there are 7 guys there, and they're all around a bench, and they've all got weapons, bats and a croquet mallet, oddly. Like I distinctly remember a croquet mallet.
I know growing up, I always hung out at parks with weapons.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Croquet mallet, whatever.
As one does.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And so as soon as I see this, these guys don't even say anything. They just get up and start circling us. And as soon as I see this, I'm like, Matt, we got to go. And I kid you not, he looks at me and he giggles. He giggles. He goes, "Just a second." And he picks one guy at random and just smashes him in the face. He hits him so hard, the guy's feet fly up.
Wow.
And he goes, "Okay, now we can go." And so they start running after us. They were already gonna,
Yeah, pummel you.
Anyway, so they start running after us. We start running. Matt is laughing the whole time. He's running as fast as he can, and still he's got the oxygen to laugh. I'm not laughing. I'm about $1.45, soaking wet, holding a German Shepherd. I'm about $1.45. And I think I'm probably running like one of those lizards that runs across the hot sands.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like I look like at the moment. And I'm just running so fast. Like it was about a 16-foot sandbox playground. I crossed it in 3 steps.
Nice.
Yeah. And
The real question here is, did you drop your beer?
I threw my beers at them.
You threw your beers at?
Yeah.
Okay.
They served their stated purpose.
So your question, so your statement is not, here, hold my beer, right? Yours was, hey, wait just a minute.
Yeah. But in a sense, it was hold my beer.
Those are the best stories.
Yeah.
Hold my beer,
Yeah.
or watch this,
Yeah.
or
Oh,
what could
what?
go wrong.
And so there were a couple of times where I felt the wind of things on that, like the croquet mallet, I'm pretty sure like grazed my hair.
Sure.
It was that close. So I get to the edge of the park, and I'm in no way thinking strategically. I'm wearing Jesus sandals, by the way.
Mhm.
That's a fun
Those were made
Yeah.
for running.
Those,
Yeah.
those were made for
Yep.
detail in hindsight. And I'm running as fast as I can. I trip over the curb at the edge of the park.
Hmm.
And I land on all 4s on the concrete.
Nothing but a good feeling there.
Nothing but a good feeling. Yeah, good vibrations.
Yeah.
But check this out. This is where it gets really weird.
Oh, because it's not weird enough now. Nice.
Not
Okay.
compared to what you're about to hear.
Okay, I'm in. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay, I'm in.
Even Brad's over there, like let's hear it.
Bring it on, baby.
So I slide on the asphalt on all 4s. I have a scar on this knee now where I left a souvenir on the asphalt.
It's still there if you want to go find it.
I look up to see a black Bronco screeching to a halt. It was about a mid-'80s Bronco, and the brakes weren't great. So when those cars stopped, they wobbled.
Hmm.
The bumper wobbled a couple of inches from my face, and I could feel the wind of it. And
Wow.
everything is happening so slow.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So check this out. Guy gets out of the Bronco, barely acknowledges if I'm okay or not. He's like, "Are you okay?" "Good." And immediately looks in the park. He sees the guys that were chasing us who have all stopped and turned around and started running the other way. He gets in his car again and he shouts, "Those kids jumped my son last week." And he takes off into the park in his Bronco.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's like burning through the park in his Bronco. So what does Matt do?
Jumps in with him,
He wasn't fast enough.
but he thought about it.
He grabs his fanny pack. It was the 80s.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I had one too. I
Folds
got to
it up.
admit it.
Yeah.
Folds it up ostensibly to look like a gun and runs back into the park.
Holy cow.
I am badly hurt at this point. So I go over to the VW bus that Matt owned
Hmm.
that drove us there to find a switchblade in the tire.
That's where we always keep them.
So I assume that it's the same guys, right?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I have no choice but to wait for Matt. I couldn't run if I had to. The pain's starting to set in, so I wait for Matt. Anyway, that's the precursor. My knee is badly hurt. It's
Mhm.
badly hurt.
Right.
And so fast forward to letting it heal and everything. I'm back in Stockton. me and one of my best friends are walking from my apartment to the store to go get some beer.
Not Matt at this point.
Not
Matt.
Matt.
Yeah.
No, I actually told Matt after that. He came by the next day, said, let's go back to Modesto and find those guys. And I said, Matt, I love you, but I'm not going out in public with you anymore.
Sure.
You're a one-man wrecking ball. I know you had my back, but you're crazy.
Yeah.
You're not
Wow.
the fun crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I walk into the store to get some beer with my friend. We're walking back, burdened, loaded down with beer. And I hear a sharp whistle. And I hear, there they are. No, it's Stockton. I figure we're going to get to see somebody get in a fight. They're
Mhm.
pretty common. Two cars cross each other and pull up on both sides of us. Guys get out and circle us.
Mm.
And by the way, this is all in my book.
Nice.
I realized there they are was about us.
Right. Yeah. It didn't take long for that to set in, that
It
reality.
set in
Yeah.
pretty quick, yeah. And so somehow, when I realized what was happening, I mean, this was bad. Because
Mhm.
we're circled for no good reason. Usually there's provocation or something. There was
Right.
none of that here.
Right.
I'm like, I turned to my best friend and I said, we got to get out of here. You got to get out of here. And we're circled.
Yeah.
We're surrounded. Everything sort of flashed and I was on the other side of the circle. I had my friend by his stupid leather vest and I'm pulling him through the circle, bad leg and all. As I was pulling him, this little cholo grabbed him by the other side of his vest, stronger than me, broke my grip, turned him around, and stabbed him right under the nipple.
Hmm.
Switchblade nicked his lung and his heart. By the time he got to the top of the stairs, he realized there was something very, very wrong.
Mhm.
Telling the short version, he lived. He
Mm-hmm.
has never really been the same since, but he lived.
Sure.
And so all of that is the reason that I moved out of town. That's the setup to why I found myself at what would be the darkest point in my life, the point where I changed.
Mhm.
That wasn't enough to change me.
There's more.
There's so much more. 327 pages. But so I moved to Chico, California, and when I got there, it was like a paradise. It was just beer and college girls and sunshine, and I'm home. You know?
Let the good times roll.
It went bad really, really fast, to the point where I wound up homeless, completely strung out on narcotics, methamphetamines, in and out of jail. And the last time I got out of jail, I found out that somebody had stolen all of my belongings from the apartments I was keeping them in.
Hmm. Apartments.
Multiple,
Yes.
because I didn't have my own.
Right.
Truly, and you know how
Couch surfing.
Yeah, you know how influencers like to say, I was homeless and sleeping in my car, and now I'm making $4 million a second.
Right.
I'm not making $4 million a second yet, but I was home. I didn't even have a car to sleep in. So
Taking it next level. This is next level stuff.
this is the raw dog, y'all. So, found out who took all my stuff. This guy happened to be a black guy. I say happened to because criminals are criminals to me. I don't see color.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anybody can be a
But I
criminal.
did have a lot of friends that were from up the hill. And if you live in Chico, up the hill means those are some really racist, rednecky white folks.
Mm-hmm.
By and large, for you guys listening.
Yeah.
I'm not painting everyone with the same brush here. One of those guys found out, and he turned it into a racial issue right away. So my beeper goes off as I'm trying to formulate a plan.
Beeper. Now that's taking us back right there. Okay.
This is old school. This is before the big cell phone. You know?
Right.
So I call the phone and say, hey, how's it going? Realize who it is. He says, I'm coming down. I heard about your troubles. We're going to fix this. I thought he was going to maybe give me some money or a place to stay. No, he brought down 2 handguns.
Hmm.
And so
Different kind of fix it.
different kind of fix it. And he shows up, gets everybody in the apartment well and truly high. You know? So now we're all like, for those of you that know, for those of you that don't, it's probably better to keep it that way.
Yep.
And he says, come on out to the car with me. So I come out to the car and he reaches in the glove compartment through the passenger side. And he hands me probably like a .357 snub nose, like a revolver.
Mm-hmm.
It was held guns before. This one was a revolver, and it was extremely heavy. And the first thing I notice is the handle is taped up with duct tape.
Perfect.
Second thing I notice is the serial number is filed off.
Perfect. Even more
Yeah.
perfect.
So it kind of tells you what, it sets a stage, right? And
Yes.
then he shows me the gun he has. So this one's for you, this one's mine. I'm going to meet you back here at midnight, and we're going to go handle this once and for all. That was the moment. So outside, I'm like, yeah, you got it. Let's do this. Meet me back here at midnight.
Right.
Inside, I struggle to really sum up what this was like for me. The best analogy I've come up with so far is that all of my preconceived notions, everything that I had, my whole identity
Mm-hmm.
was like this glass shell. And that moment just threw a rock through it. I let go of everything. I had such a profound moment of release. I didn't care what was on the other side. I just knew I wasn't staying here anymore.
Right.
I was not going to hunt someone down after talking about it, right? and shoot them. I was not going to do that. I had crossed so many lines getting to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So many ethical and moral boundaries were just in the rearview mirror,
Right.
you know, and I was just like, seriously, if I had to walk the train tracks out of town, I would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
So I start brainstorming and calling people. Next thing I know, about an hour later, I've cobbled together one box or two boxes of stuff, small boxes. I'm in the back of a CRX with two girls I've never met before. We're driving from Chico down to Los Angeles for winter break, or
Mm-hmm.
Thanksgiving, and I'm just huddled in the back of this CRX processing, you know, and people always say, where did you go? I ran home to my mommy's house,
Sure.
and that was when my life started over.
Wow. So we're going to take a break here in just seconds. I've got one question before the break. Going through all that, going through the cult, having these incredible negative experiences, to put it mildly, that would most likely decimate most people's self-confidence,
Yeah.
self-esteem. Obviously, you were able to get past that.
Yeah.
What do you think is the key to your self-confidence at this point?
You know, I get asked that a lot.
Really?
I
Oh,
do. And you sort of just have to search your experiences for an answer to that. And I could give a glib answer, but I don't want to.
sure.
There are two things that I would attribute it to. One was a specific moment, and one was more of a tendency that I developed. The tendency I developed from a very young age was a tendency of self-reflection,
Mm-hmm.
like curiosity, you know, and you know, I think that by and large, as a culture and as maybe even a world, we lack curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think that that's an important thing. Critical thinking, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Critical thinking seems to have dissipated
Those-
dramatically.
Those two should be thought of as two sides of a coin,
Mm-hmm.
and we should endeavor to have those be part of our makeup.
Sure.
I was always a critical thinker, too good by half at arguing, you know, and I had curiosity about, like, why do I keep doing the same thing? Why this? Why that? That was just part of my makeup, and I really do believe that was a thread, a lifeline, even during those really dark times. Because I'll tell you, it wasn't as dark when I was almost getting ready to shoot someone as it was for probably the 3 years after. The deepest, most gnarly parts of my self-exploration. That
Mhm.
was way darker. But I also had a specific moment. I never really got to know my dad,
Mm-hmm.
but my dad he was a legend and a myth. I mean, he really was. He played jazz saxophone with every great jazz artist you've ever heard of. All of them, like Dizzy, Charlie Parker, Wayne Shorter, you name it, he's played with them.
Wow.
He toured the world twice just on the strength of, like, he just would set out, he'd go find a club, play there, he'd blow them so thoroughly away, he'd get another gig, and he literally hopped gig to gig around the world multiple times.
Wow.
Had a top 10 jazz album on the charts, He was a bit of a storyteller himself, so sometimes his top 10 album was there for 8 weeks. Sometimes it was there for 3 months,
Sure.
depending on how when you
It's
caught
still
it.
there.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah.
I've heard him tell the story. Yeah, it's still there.
But so he was like, more times in my life than I can count, I'd tell somebody my name and they'd go, "Are you Steve Wolfe's son?" Perfect strangers. So I mean, he was more myth than man. He cast a big shadow.
Wow.
And so when he did speak to me, and when I did get to see him, his words had tremendous gravity.
Sure.
And I was always pretty skilled as an illustrator. And so about 16 or so, he comes to visit, which I would later learn he had to get permission from my mom and clearance, and she had to believe that he was not strung out and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get to see him very often. And I get to see him this time. And he says, "So what are you working on?" And that's all you do. "What are you working on, kid? What are you working on?" And that's me now. It's so strange. I'm like,
Yeah.
first thing I want to know is, what are you working on?
Right.
But, I showed him my art, and he's like weeping, and he's blown away, and he's just so impressed. And so, "I don't know, Dad, it's, and I always had a really weird relationship to drawing. It was always a hard thing for me to do, even though I was very good at
I
it.
was going to say, even though you liked it, were good at it, it was hard for you.
And so I'm criticizing myself as I'm showing him my work, and he looks at me, and just with the gravity of a son, he's like, "Boy, don't you ever be afraid to say what you're good at."
Nice.
Now that it seems so like a throwaway statement at the time, but it has stuck with me all these years. And now I coach people as you do, and you will know this. People don't want to say what they're good at.
Absolutely. It's hard, very hard for them.
I remember talking to a Fit Pro, a fitness professional, for those of you that are
Right.
vernacular, and he had bought 50 copies of my book just for the right to have a 1-hour call with me. That's cool.
Yeah, that's
Like,
absolutely.
I can, you know what I mean? Pat yourself on the back for that.
Right.
And I'm talking to him, and I'm like, "So tell me about what you do." He goes, "Well, I'm a fitness professional, and I do blah, 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 and this and that." And I'm like, "Okay." And so I just asked him, I said, "So are you good at what you do?" And he goes, "I'm okay." I was like, whoa, hold the phone. Do you know how many other fitness professionals there are competing for your attention? And this is interesting, because now it's like, from a personal branding perspective, this was an important thing.
Right.
And he's like, "Well, yeah, of course, it's a really crowded space." I said, "So who's going to choose you if, when I ask you if you're good, you go, 'I'm okay'?" Right?
Right.
I need you to tell me, are you good or not?
Yeah, exactly.
And that was a revelatory moment for him. And so for a long time, his tagline was, "My name's John Compton, and I'm strong as,"
Right. That's nice.
Because it's not egotistical to know what your strengths are. It's not, we have that tall poppy culture here too. They talk about that in Australia a lot. We've got that here, the crabs in a barrel, everybody stay at the same level. Man,
Brad was teaching that the other night where we were at.
that's not ever going to be me.
Right.
And it really comes down to that moment. And what I mean by that is, when I struggle with being sort of objective about my strengths or being self-confident, I always refer to that moment. That moment was sort of the moment that takes everything that's nebulous in your head that you somewhat feel, and put it into this focused kind of like, "Boy, don't you ever be afraid to tell me what you're good at."
Yeah.
Gotta like that. And on that note, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with Manny Wolfe in just a minute. How are we doing on
Manny,
time?
you rock. 35 minutes, but anyway.
It's a little bit long.
Again, I made the adjustments on the station for anything that goes over, so we're good.
Okay.
You've got actually an hour and a half to work with.
I'm going to use the bathroom.
Yeah. Manny, you rock, man.
Well, thank you, my
Well,
friend.
I grew up in a gang environment too in Bakersfield.
Yeah, Bakersfield was.
Same thing. And
So you know Stockton then?
Yeah, well, yeah.
If you knew Bakersfield, you heard about Stockton?
Yeah, because when I was young, the gangs and stuff were just moving in, establishing their turf and the drug wars and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, my brother, I was still a little bit young, but he got really caught up in it. He came home one night and his hands were all bloodied and sliced up, and some African American guy had a big afro, and he grabbed his hair and had razor blades in it. It was like, really?
Really?
But anyway, yeah, I got really good at running, but I've experienced what you're talking about, where you're just walking down the road minding your business. Next thing you know, 6 guys around you.
Yeah.
Would you call me? I didn't say anything.
Oh God.
And I can
What'd
just,
you call me?
yeah, I just hear them. I can hear them, running away laughing. And like, oh wow, 6 guys beat up 1 guy. Ooh, that was real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
But
was
anyway.
that was Stockton, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. What'd you call? I heard you were talking about my mama.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Translation: You're
Yeah.
about to get hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm the same way. Because when I'm talking to people, sometimes people will ask me, "Are you really listening to me?" Because I'm constantly, looking around me. Oh, I'm zeroed in on what you're talking about, but it's just natural for me to.
Yeah.
Okay, what? There's something behind me. I can feel it. Whatever.
I've had to train myself really forcefully to stay.
Yeah.
Let my peripheral do the paying attention work.
Yeah.
Because I was always like that.
Yeah.
And my wife really was the one that brought it home for me.
Yeah.
She's like, it really doesn't feel like you're listening to me
Yeah.
when you're looking around all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll be right back.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you another water there too. This rocks, man.
I tell you, bring you good people,
Yeah.
fun people to meet.
Well, see, I tell my story about the gang stuff, and people say, "Yeah, right, Brad." Exact same. I was like, that's what I was just telling him. And I was just telling him, yeah, they'd surround you and go, "Would you call me?" And he goes, "Yeah, the big line up there. Would you call my mama?" I'm like, I had that one too. It's always feels good to be validated.
Sure. Well, I'll kind of speed this up to what he's doing now, and we'll still point at me when we should take the next break, like 15 minutes or something,
Okay.
and then we'll finish with the last few questions. And
Okay.
we'll
Well,
make
let's
this
go.
go on time because
Let's go 20 on this section, so we be sure and understand about his business, and then we'll just do like a 5 to 7 minute to wrap it up.
okay, you just point at me because
Okay.
we're going to go into branding and building a personal brand and the stuff that he does.
Okay, so I'll
Go through that transition.
what I'll do is at the 19-minute mark, I'll go, and I'll give you 1 minute to kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, like wave your hand if you need to. If I'm looking at him.
Okay.
So
Okay.
anyway, he's a fun guy, right?
Yeah, he is. That's fun. Yeah, I can't wait to hear about all this branding stuff. You've already given me a few ideas on what to do.
Yeah,
to get these podcasts out more.
Yeah, we're both pretty focused on the same thing, helping people with their brands and building that, because it's the true missing piece that most people never look at.
Yeah. Right.
They just don't get how important that is, because if enough people don't know who you are, they don't know what problem you solve and what the value is that you bring, they won't do business with you. Yeah. And that all stems these days from your personal brand. Yeah. Standing in front of that brand.
Well, so, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna get everything started. I'm gonna step out for like 3 minutes. My wife just called. She just got done at the doctor, but I want to just find out what's going on.
You do whatever you need to do, Manny, and I can we can sit here all day.
I'll at least get you going here. So
Manny, we're gonna move into the branding and the other stuff.
Yeah.
So whenever.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2.
All right, and we're back with the legend Manny Wolfe, and we're going to be talking now. Manny, your story is just incredible. Some of the things you've overcome and the life that you've lived, especially in the earlier years. We'll just say the formative years. But let's move on to what you're doing these days. And you've gone through a couple iterations, as we all have, right? I mean, you went from construction, doing some of that, to what you're doing now. And I really want to focus on what we're doing now, even though I'm sure construction and painting could really have an audience. But
there's life lessons there.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Well, let's talk about something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, and that's developing a personal brand, helping coaches, authors, speakers, that kind of stuff. And tell everybody how you kind of ended up going down that path. Yeah. And that path actually kind of what brought you to Salt Lake today. Yeah, for this weekend, and why we're sitting in the same room together again after it's been about a year since we've been in the same room together.
Yeah, it has.
It was last November, wasn't it? Mid-November?
So.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's when we did it. So the short answer is construction fired me.
Thankfully.
Thankfully, yeah. I mean, I was looking for an exit plan, for literally the first time I picked up a brush. I was like, this is cool work. This is good, but I'm in great shape, but this will break me down.
Sure.
You can only do this stuff in the field for 10, 12 years is what I'd say if you start young.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. And that's how it's supposed to be.
Sure.
To all my solo contractor friends, you're supposed to get a crew after a while.
Right.
Guys, Jim, come on, man.
Uh-oh, Jim. Sounds like we better have a talk.
Yeah. So around the time I met my wife, construction had really tanked for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, so it was after 2012, things had started coming back. I had 2.5 years that were outstanding. And then it just dipped for me. Now everyone else is still busy.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed personal.
They were out to get you.
It felt personal.
Right.
The truth is that I had lost my drive for it and my passion for it. And I sabotaged myself, bottom line. I did. You hear about it all the time. I lost my passion. I started self-sabotaging.
Mm-hmm.
Literally showing up late to bids, hiring people that were just, not great people, giving people, one guy in particular, too much authority, and he had a big part in driving my business into the ground. But
Sure.
This whole time, my wife is like, "What are you doing on the construction site?" She's like, "You're like Socrates painting a house," which I thought that was pretty.
That's
cool.
a pretty nice analogy, actually.
Yeah.
It's a swift kick in the butt, is what that really is. But yeah,
for such an incredibly gentle, soft woman, she was such a swift kick in the butt for me. I mean, yeah, that's I could talk a whole podcast about her. But
we'll do that another day.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put that on the calendar.
That's awesome. So she's like, "Yeah, you're not a painter. You're not a painter. I'm good at it. Yeah, but you're not a painter.
Right.
But you're not a painter. This is not what you should be doing." And she's a high-level recruiter. And she's always said to me, "My gift is that I can look at people and know what they'll be good at, what they should do.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to put them in those jobs. And you're not a painter." So I'll never forget it. I'm on a Zoom call, just starting to get into the space.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who told me to write the book, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Good for her.
Yeah, so I wrote it, and now I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. So I moved into the space and sort of like had that blue ocean sensation, like, oh my God, there's so much potential here.
Right.
And so I'm, on Zoom calls all the time, and I'm building networks, and I'm training. I think I had already released my podcast, and so I think this is funny still to this day. My podcast followed a similar sort of goal as yours does.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody cared. And I hope they care for yours, because they didn't care for mine.
Everybody loves this.
What I mean by that is I started getting all these messages. "Can you teach me how to sound like you? Can you teach me how to sound like you on the microphone?" And I'm like, "Absolutely.
Of course I can.
Yeah. Say
Duh.
this first, figure it out later."
That's right.
Well, I hadn't thought about it because I hadn't thought about coaching people on voice coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But, I studied singing, I studied acting, I studied public speaking during my sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, yeah, I'm qualified to do these things. And so I started doing it. And I'm on a Zoom call, and I had the office door open. You can see on the camera, right? You can see everything behind you. I see my
Right.
wife walking past the door with all my painter's whites. And I'm like, "Honey, what are you doing?" And she's like, just her voice. She goes, "I'm putting these in the garage." Pause. "You're not a painter."
The voice from beyond.
Yeah, it's so great. And I'm like, yeah. And so whoever was on the call with me started laughing. And they're like, "So I guess you're not a painter." I'm like, "I guess I'm not." So my first foray into making money online was voice coaching. I was so green, I didn't even know about PayPal. I just thought PayPal was a thing on eBay. I had no idea, right? First person that ever paid me money, still the best money I've ever earned. It's like 1/30 of the individual payments I've earned since. But this guy said, "Yeah, I want to hire you. What do you charge?" And in a panic, I said $397 for a month of coaching. I don't know.
Right.
And he said, "Okay, how do I pay you?" "You have to drive." You have to drive to the Wells Fargo in your city, in your state, and deposit $397 into my account. Neil, buddy, thank you. And he did it.
Wow.
And
This day and age, no way.
yeah, I know. But I have to do 3 clicks. Forget it. Send me something with 1 click.
That's right.
And I remember just going to my wife and going, look at this, $397.
How much painting would you have had to done for that?
Well, no, I made pretty good money at painting.
Mm-hmm.
Might probably paint a front door for about $397. A nice front
A
door.
good door.
Yeah.
Not those
Or any
rudimentary
door
doors.
that you paint red or yellow, for those of you that don't know. It's going to take me 2 or 3 days because those colors are invisible.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's, $397 is about, when I was at the height, maybe a half day for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I was expensive.
Sure.
So anyway, the voice coaching sort of peaked and then sort of, ground down. And that was because I didn't know anything about branding or marketing.
Right.
I would just offer free 15-minute calls. And if you liked it, I'd beg you to hire me.
Yeah, that'd be the offer.
And so a lot of public speakers were showing interest in the voice stuff, as would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I will reveal something here. Most speakers confuse having the courage to speak with being good.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you have the courage to speak to an audience does not mean you're good.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, most people, until you've seen someone who's really great, don't even know the difference.
Right.
And when you see that person who can bring tears to your eyes, or I don't want to pimp Tony Robbins out too much, but through showmanship and hypnosis and everything, he pumps you up. He changes your state.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit of a tangent.
Temporarily.
Yep.
Just until the credit card goes through.
That's right. And then buyer's remorse sets in hard.
But so speakers started coming into my world, and I mean, I've done public speaking. I was trained in it. I have
Mm-hmm.
literally hundreds of hours on stage,
Mm-hmm.
probably about 1,500 hours on stage. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. This is way cooler.
Mm-hmm.
So I put together a curriculum teaching public speakers. And I hung my shingle with that.
Yep.
The thing was, it went okay. I had good months and bad months. Again, no real perception of branding and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
That was the challenge. But every time somebody would talk to me about speaking, their first question would be, can you get me booked? And
Right.
I'd always say, I'll get around to it. About 3 years later, I finally did. And I put a beta group together for this training, and everybody came in with high hopes, and they realized halfway through, it's a slog. It's hard
Right.
work. It's just prospecting. It's basically cold calling and then following up. And that's what you do. So about halfway through the little test program, I get on a Zoom call with my little audience, and there's about 25 people on that call, and they're just like, and if you guys are just listening, you can't see my face, but I look crestfallen.
Yes, it's not a pretty picture.
I look defeated. Because that's what it's like. You have to be able to allocate, I'd say 90 minutes a day, every day, if you really want to fill your calendar, starting cold with speaking gigs. So I get this little brainstorm. I'm like, would you guys like it if somebody did all this work for you? Everybody perks back up.
Yeah.
It's like kids, if you say, okay, who wants a cookie?
Right.
And so I literally got 5 students for a done-for-you program right then and there,
Mm-hmm.
before I had any inkling how to do it. So the next step is I better figure out how to put together this done-for-you service.
Right.
And I did that. And I created a very good system for finding and applying for speaking gigs. Very good. In fact, that's a dramatic pause for those.
Yes. I was like, that was just well timed. It was perfect.
In about 8 months, we found and applied to about 8,000 speaking gigs.
Nice.
And so the problem was that I mean, it was clear that the minority of the people in the program, 55 people got into that program. About 7 of them were getting about 90% of the gigs.
Right.
And I'm scratching my head and I'm like, okay, what is going on here? And I keep I'm not yelling at my assistant, but I keep assuming that she's doing something wrong and my team is doing something. No, it wasn't that. So about the 5,000 mark, I said, let's just hold on. Let's just tear this down for a minute. Let's see what's going on. I went and I looked at everybody's profiles. I looked at everybody. And the 7, it was clear they were pros. It was clear they were speakers. It was clear they had value. You could tell on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and Instagram. Although I don't like Instagram, but that's neither here nor there.
It's another podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, this happened while I was using some of the personal branding strategies from the program that you and I met.
Right. Yep.
And so for me, my audience is growing and my awareness is growing and everything. And it's like, look at that. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was I thought the big moment was offer this done for you service. I thought that was the aha moment. That was the precursor to the aha moment, which is like, you have to be focused on personal branding now. If you don't want to, that's fine, but you are going to get lapped by those who do.
Yeah.
I mean, you are going to just get left in the dust.
Yeah. And it's amazing how that's come front and center. And yet people are still trying to minimize their brand, or, you know, not put the emphasis they should on their brand. Not to cut you off there, but
no, you're right.
It's become amazing how many people I hear this one all the time when I'm working with people. I want my company or my logo to be the face of my brand. It's like, okay, this isn't 1960.
Right. Yeah, this isn't Mad Men.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So for those of you that feel like you want the logo to be the face of your brand, you're welcome to do that. But just understand, I mean, you might as well open up your bank account to your competitors. That's what you're doing.
Yep.
You will get absolutely decimated. And it's simple. When you understand it, it's so simple. Because of social media primarily, we have access to the entire world. The whole playing field has been leveled. I mean, there's virtually no hierarchy left, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of
Absolutely
access to
true.
people, right?
But it's still perceived as if it's this big barrier, right? To get out there is this big barrier when it's never been easier, never been cheaper.
Right. Yeah. And so one of the things I talk with people a lot about is understanding the tool that we've been given. You know, you've probably heard somewhere at some time someone say, well, I thought technology was supposed to change our lives, right? You hear that old Eeyore sad sack. I don't feel any different. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You can have everything you want delivered to your home now. You don't need to own a car anymore.
Yep.
You can talk to people in Antarctica if you want to. Like, that's change.
Yeah, and you can see them face to face.
Yeah. Yeah, and it costs you zero. So anyway, the thing to understand is that because of those changes and that flattening out, we now choose more than ever who we trust, who we like, who we follow, who we talk to, who we buy from, based on you. More than ever before. If I feel like I like you, I will work with you. If I don't feel like I like you, there's no incentive for me to work with you.
Right.
You're not the only gas station for 500 miles, right? Yeah. And so personal branding, by the way, logos, colors, websites, etc., those are adjunct components of personal branding, but they are not personal branding.
Yeah, they're an aside.
Personal branding at its heart is two things. So what do people say, think, and feel about you and their services when you're not there? That's the essence of it. What do they say, think, and feel? What do you say, think, and feel about me now? Right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then if you go, oh, that was interesting. That guy's a long-winded, you know. And then you follow me, you're going to see tons of content from me because I want you to know who I really am. It's not manipulative. It doesn't have an agenda beyond letting you know who I really am.
Yep.
And then when getting to know who I really am intersects with, I'd like more coaching clients. I'd like more money. I'd like ... I'll be top of mind.
Right. Absolutely.
I'll be the one that you think of first and decide whether or not it makes sense.
Exactly.
That's the power of personal branding. And I put a question out to social media last night. What's the difference between personal branding and marketing? and people had really great answers. But I think that for coaches, marketing is a straight line.
Mhm.
It's how do you get better and better at iterating, finding a customer, and converting them.
Right.
Branding is omnipresent comparatively, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like this year, I'm going to start in interviewing, video interviewing, like high level people, top people in the space. I'm going to get a corporate sponsor to be the exclusive sponsor of those interviews.
Right.
I'm gonna be able to promise both of them, I'll put your logo in front of 5 million people.
Right.
Like, think about that. You're used to probably paying $35,000 for a sponsorship at an event where you get in front of maybe 5,000 people.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
so what's 5 million worth to you?
Yeah, I know I'm preaching to the choir when we talk about this, but to get in front of 1 million people is nothing. Yeah, I know. Don't let the cat out of the bag, but it's so straightforward these days. It's a simple, not easy thing.
It's a simple, not easy thing. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't count the amount of people who I've watched their face go from blank to student. You know, when I say, look, this is how you do it, A, B, C, D. And
Right.
it's been sitting right in front of me the whole time.
Mhm.
It's literally one of those things like
Yeah.
you've parted the seas, right?
Yeah.
The thing that kills me though is how many people are still disbelievers.
Yeah, and let's give a shout out to Mark here.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
deserves it and earns it. We both learned this from Mark Lack, who is
He's a whiz.
genius
Yeah,
at this stuff,
he's a whiz.
man. And in fairness, before he broke it down, I was clueless about it too.
Yeah, it did. It was like you felt like it should be there, but you made it so hard.
Yeah.
And he broke it down to make it so easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's your shout out, Mark. We love you.
We do, man. We'll see you next weekend, brother.
So we're gonna take another break.
Yep.
Before we finish off, when did you realize you had a skill in branding? Was there a client? Was there a moment?
The moment came before the client, actually, interestingly enough. The moment came when I synthesized that it's about what people say, think, and feel about you and your product and service when you're not there.
Mm-hmm.
That has been the anchor that has allowed I build my whole philosophy off of that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I fly in the face of actually a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends who are branding experts, but they're looking at your logo, your website, your colors,
Yeah.
et cetera, your image.
Yeah. Let them have it.
Yeah.
Let 'em have that.
Because I'm going to be 100% me. And the thing that people kind of struggle with is, oh, what if there's not an audience out there for me? There's an audience out there for you.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we know this what is the latest thing is 2.7 billion people on Facebook, something like 2.4, whatever billion people. You don't think there's somebody that might want to listen
Yeah.
to, and maybe more than one somebody's?
Yeah. I mean, look at viral YouTube videos. Now look at TikTok. I mean, I don't know what else is happening on TikTok, but it's just a lot of really tragic people doing stupid things,
Mm-hmm.
but garnering an audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And that's the important thing.
Yep.
All right, we'll be back with Manny Wolfe. We're going to take another quick break. We'll see you in a minute.
Who was Mark? I guess I missed that. Mark
Mark Lack.
Lack.
He's the guy that really opened up our eyes to how this really works, the personal branding stuff.
Yeah.
So we were both in his.
Because I've heard about that. I mean, Brett's probably tired of hearing this, but I tell people I used to be somebody. I was on my way up, and then I had some major tragedies and whatnot. But I'm back now, and I'm trying to get reestablished. But the personal branding, it's like I had it for the longest time. I was a wanted figure back then, but man, feels like getting it started again is just
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I mean, you got this studio though. You've got a huge leg up here.
Yeah,
because you can create
thank
content.
you, because that's what I'm.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway. But yeah, I'm very interested in the personal branding. What do I got to do? Next steps. But anyway.
Yeah.
And you're doing them. The stuff we're
Okay.
talking, we're doing it.
Okay.
So
Okay, very good.
Yeah. A lot of it doesn't. I mean, once you get over the hump of like creating content,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it doesn't feel like work, does it?
no.
It's so
Yeah,
like,
because that's where I'm at. Because everything's in my head still.
yeah.
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 So
And so you heard us talking, I think earlier, we're going to be strategizing more about how to actually use podcasts, use the same strategies, right? Like you already see the strategy. I showed you how to do that with getting the likes and stuff. It's the same basic strategy with a podcast. It's the same basic strategy with a video.
Gotcha.
Right. And you've been helping me a ton, and I'm more than happy to help you do that, you know, and if you guys are working together, if he's doing podcasts, man, he's going to help you too. So,
I'll tell you one thing right now to start, like yesterday, since you
I just went dead somehow. I don't know if that matters.
Well, no, it's that connection there.
I didn't touch anything, so I was like, what?
Yeah, it's that connection.
Since you're doing these on video too, every one of these needs to go to YouTube.
Okay.
And they are.
And okay, good. So then you take the topic, you find whoever's like got killing it videos on that topic. And you know, the thing about YouTube that's so awesome that Facebook doesn't have is YouTube is a search engine.
Yeah.
You can find, YouTube is happy to tell you who's doing what you're doing and crushing it.
Nice.
So let's say this one, personal branding and you know, succeeding as in coaching or something.
Yeah.
You just you put like growing your coaching business in YouTube search bar, and it'll show you whatever ones are the top. You then take those headlines. Part of the reason they're at the top is because the headlines are thoughtful and have keywords, and you mimic the headline. Like paraphrase it, right? And what'll happen is as you also have to do a couple of other things, which maybe is something your assistant or somebody can do for you, where you fill tags and keywords. Right.
Yeah.
Do that on every time you put a new piece of content out, and it'll start triggering the algorithm.
Because that's what I've been doing that.
What'll happen?
I don't understand hashtags, but I'm doing it because everybody told me to.
Same with me.
So like, yeah.
So there's a very simple system, and I can share it with you. You know what Google's really going to look at is going to, in your description, is going to be those first two sentences. Those are the massively most important, right? And then you want to actually fill out your description, you know, to about 350 words. You want as much in there that says the same thing every paragraph, but in a slightly different way.
Gotcha.
Right. And because that's what Google's referencing.
Okay. I've noticed that.
Okay. That's why you want to do that. And then
I'm like,
the hashtags have to be congruent with the topic.
Gotcha.
So that's really all it is. There used to be ways that you could play with those things, and you could buy views, and believe me, I've had stuff slapped all the way off of Google.
Yeah.
I mean, where they would, I was persona non grata, but I was in a video creation group not too long ago, and the guy they're just YouTube whizzes, and it was really first two sentences.
Yeah.
Get that paragraph, first paragraph solid, then every paragraph, get up to the 350 words ish right in there. Make sure it's got everything you want in there. It's restated. And then like on my YouTube channel, I just have it hold that description. So when I go to make a change, I just change the headline and the first two sentences. Everything else stays the same. So you're only ever writing it in once, right? You don't have to cut and paste. It'll just automatically do it. And then the biggest thing these days is the thumbnails, right? And that's why I give it. Yeah. And so.
And you can learn about those by the whatever videos are crushing it, right? You don't have to reinvent any of this stuff because it's a search engine.
Right.
And so the goal then is to get to where when somebody searches Gary Vaynerchuk or something, you pop up on the sidebar. People who enjoyed this also watched.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Once you get there,
it's okay.
It's
you're building an audience. So how much time do we have, Brad?
Just 5 minutes.
So
what's your favorite quote and how do we get a hold of you? I don't know.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I guess if that's the time we're gonna jump right to the kind of the end. Let's bring people into your world.
Okay, 3, 2.
All right, and we're back with branding expert Manny Wolfe, and also the author of the Tao of the Unbreakable Man. Excuse me. Manny, we're going to end the show with a couple of my favorite things. One, how do you define self-confidence? Because obviously you've got a lot and you teach people how to have self-confidence. How would you define self-confidence?
I think self-confidence is synonymous with letting go of a lot, actually. You know, like but particularly letting go of ways that you think you should behave, you think you should be perceived, you think you should act, having the courage to really kind of come forward as yourself. And that's not a quick thing, by the way.
Yeah.
Not a quick, easy thing. It does take work. I don't mean to imply that it's but that's really what it is. Self-confidence is just a lack of sort of effect of the judgment of others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like that. What would your message be to someone who needs a boost of motivation, confidence, a little inspiration? Because you get a lot of coaching clients who are like I do. They're no longer believe they can. You're like the last hope, right? Sometimes they come to us and they're like, I don't know if I can really do this. I've had so many bad experiences, and I get that. But what would you say to someone like that?
I think that maybe the Earl Nightingale, well, he quoted someone else, but Earl Nightingale, I heard him say that a rut is really no more than a grave with the ends kicked out. You know, and so what do I mean by that is,
Nice.
look, it's not over till you quit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not over till you give up. There's setbacks and defeat happens when you stop. Setbacks happen while you're in progress. So, like, just putting one foot in front of the other. Sometimes I want to say it like, you got to just suck it up, Buttercup. You know, the world doesn't owe us anything.
That's right.
It is what we make of it.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite motivational quote, or is the one you just said from Earl Nightingale it? And if it isn't, what is your
motivational quote? It would be something from Stephen Covey. I don't know what.
You're in Covey country.
Oh, well, yeah,
you're
I know,
right.
it's true, I am. And he is my absolute number one de facto mentor. I learned more from the 7 Habits. I've read and listened to that book easily 300 times.
Wow.
I mean, it's.
What are the 7 habits? Can you name them?
No, ironically, I can't.
I'm going to share a lesson later with somebody I will have on the show here. His name's Roger Salam, former head of sales for Tony Robbins, and I'll share that when
I
we
can name
leave.
some of them, but
Right.
But the point is, okay, I've got a great one.
Oh, let's hear it.
Anytime that you think the problem is out there, that thought is the problem.
Is that a Manny Wolfe
No,
special?
that's Stephen Covey.
That's Stephen Covey.
That's Stephen Covey, yeah. Anytime you think the problem is outside of you, that very thought is the problem itself.
Gotcha. I like it. I love that.
Woo.
Tell us how people could come into your world, whether they want to maybe buy your book, which has a lot of your previous story that you told, or whether they want to come into your world as somebody who needs help with their brand, or maybe still a little voice lessons. Who knows?
Voice lessons. I would encourage you to come find me on Facebook. You can search the Manny Wolfe group and ask for permission to join my Facebook group. And if you're awesome, I'll let you in.
So no pressure there.
No pressure there.
Yeah, Brad and I couldn't get in, but maybe some of you could.
You can like lick the stamp and.
Yeah, that's right. Your book's on Amazon, I take
Books on Amazon. The Tao of the Unbreakable Man. The one place people get tripped up if they don't already know is that Tao is spelled T-A-O.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Tell us what you've got coming up in the future. If you've got something going right now.
Yeah, well, so as of the recording of this, I'm about to go judge a speaking competition later today and tomorrow for speaking seriously. Next weekend, I'm at a mastermind with Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Big ups, Mark.
Yeet.
Let's see. So the weekend after that, I'm also traveling for education and self-improvement. Next thing I've got coming up is I'm doing a weekend intensive in probably January, where it's going to be start to finish. What's the expression? Soup to nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you need to start or build your business.
Yep.
Everything you need for the online business. Not feel good, not rah, not speaking from the stage about, to you. It's going to be done with you.
Right.
Boom, start to finish. So if you'd like to come to that, you better get in touch with me.
Yep. I like the way you do those things because that's my philosophy too. It just, let's just do it. Let's bust it out. Well, that's it for today. As always, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to email me at brett@brettlechtenberg.com. If you have a guest that you would like us to try and get on the show, you can send the same. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. And with that being said, Manny, thank you very much for being here. Bad Brad, thank
Yeah.
you as always.
Thank you. Thank you, Manny.
And until next time, have a limitless day.
Then it goes out with some serious rockage.
You feel like we hit everything that would be pertinent for you?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, those other people you were talking about, because I was going to tell you, I've got a whole nother network that we're getting started. It's called Resilience Talk Network.
Oh man.
So this one's a
So what are
5K
you
of the
looking
resilience.
for that? Because I
Anybody that's in this genre here.
okay,
So
I got people.
Resilience Talk Network. I like that word. It's a
Yeah,
buzzword
I
now.
like that too.
So yeah,
Cool.
you'll be on that one too, just so you know.
Love it. Whatever I can do. I think you know my philosophy. I want to be there.
So nice.
Amazing.
Good show. Good show.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take him and introduce him to Bill.
Mm-hmm. Okay, say goodbye, everybody. I'll see you.
Bye.